It's good to see you guys again, Kevin and Eric, as we get ready for Auburn now. One game down and nine more to go in the regular season, and hopefully more after that. But Auburn's coming up on Saturday. And guys, before we talk about the Tigers, I just wanted to get your thoughts on what we saw last week. What did you take away from Georgia's performance against Arkansas in that victory?
Yeah, well, I'll jump in, I guess, and start. I think going into the season, we really thought that we were going to have a dominant defense, and boy, did they ever step up and play extremely well. Really, outside of a couple of plays, not even blown coverages, just good plays by Arkansas. You take out one or two plays, and it was just a dominant performance. So big check mark in the plus column there for Georgia's defense, and I don't think you can walk away without acknowledging what a great job the specialty teams did across the board. It may have been the best special teams performance that I've ever seen out of a Georgia Bulldogs football program. It just gave us opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to stretch and pull away in that football game. Obviously, some struggles early on the offensive side of the ball, but Stetson Bennett came in, very calming for us, and we got going there in the second half. But the play of the defense and the play of the special teams, for me, really what stands out. And if those two units play like that, you can win a lot of football games, regardless of how you're performing on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I felt like you saw a little bit of the things you didn't want to see last week, and then you saw some things that you liked seeing and were anticipating. And the struggles that we had there in the first half on offense, you were hoping they were going to be crisp. At least I was. You were hoping they were going to not have too many penalties, not have plays that negated good plays, and that's exactly how we started. DeJuan Mathis came out there, made a nice run, made two good passes in a row, then got a penalty, and we start over, and then it just looked like we couldn't get anything to click, and there was no rhythm. But when Stetson came in the second half, we got some rhythm, and I think everybody just took a deep breath, and they probably just said, just calm down, guys. This is football. Let's get back to the basics. And it really looked like they did that on offense. Much like Eric said, thank goodness for the special team and thank goodness for a defense that's a veteran defense. The defense, even though we have a lot of young guys playing, this game we started, I think, four true freshmen. So that's something as this team moves forward, you need to have the veteran sides of it, which is the defense and the special team, kind of set the pace. So going into this week, I feel like the offense can get back to the basics and really try to get better. And the defense and special teams have to push it up a notch. They've done well. They've set a mark. Now they need to really even do better. And as Eric said, how do you do better as a special team than they did last week? Well, you maintain exactly that level, and then you take a couple of those kicks back, because we were really close to doing that. So I think that there's a lot that this team can improve on, but at the end of the game, 37-10, a dominating win in one half from a team that needs to do it for 4 quarters this coming week.
We saw Kentucky and Auburn go down to the wire into fourth quarter, guys, last week, and Kentucky made some mistakes in the fourth quarter, a couple of turnovers and a failed fake punt attempt, and Auburn was able to score on most of those mistakes by the Wildcats, and they went on to win it in the fourth quarter. But how much improvement from last week's performance by us and by Auburn do you expect to see this week? That difference from game one to game two, considering where we started at game one with a lot of maybe guys out of condition and not a lot of practice, not a lot of reps over the last 8 months or so. Do you expect to see a vast improvement from last week to this week?
I do, for one. Even in a normal season, that jump between game one, where you're getting the cobwebs kind of brushed off and knocking off some of the rust, even when you've had a spring practice and you've got everybody going through summer conditioning programs and you're ready to play, you typically see a big jump between week one and week two. I think that jump's going to be even bigger this year, and I think that we're going to see big strides by really every team in the league, every team across the country, just because you've been so disrupted in the offseason. So I think who improves right now, week in and week out, every single day, gets better, who stays healthy. I think that the quality and the level of football that you're going to see in weeks 5, 6, and 7, really as you move through the year, it's just going to get better and better and better. I think you saw a big jump just with the Dogs between the first half and the second half. That rust, though, it's there for everybody. You just can't expect to not have coordinated summer workout programs, to not have spring, and expect for there not to be rust and guys playing themselves into shape and really being ready to go. I think that rust was expected. It's not what you want to see, but I think it was expected. I think that we'll see two football teams, both in Auburn and Georgia, that play at a much crisper and a much higher level in week 2. And I think that'll continue throughout the season as well.
Yeah, I have to agree with Eric. I think me and him both have been programmed for that. And I think that's preached, throughout high school, college, and the professional league. Week 1 to week 2, you need to improve. And when you start talking about an individual, your job's on the line. If you don't improve that week, you've got to show that improvement or else somebody else gets a shot. And, with a team like Georgia, much like a team like Auburn, you have quality people on that depth chart. And so there's not a lot of waiting, Scott, for them to get better. So, to get better, you got to show it during the week. First of all, you got to go back out and practice, and you have to make a true effort, and that's very measurable. Coaches look at that, the film, that will show the difference in whether you're going to get better for game 2. It just does not happen. As we see the improvements in game 2, I think it's very important that Georgia clean up the penalties and certainly look at the turnovers. If you look at this Auburn team, you said it a minute ago, Scott, Kentucky was in that ball game to a couple of late turnovers and mistakes, and Auburn jumped on it, much like Georgia did. We are teams of that can take advantage of opportunities, and when you create your own opportunities for yourself, that's one good thing. But if you start creating opportunities for your opponent, it will cost you, and it'll cost you this week. So there's got to be a noticeable improvement when the first whistle blows, not coming back out at halftime after a speech that we haven't heard yet, but I'm sure it was pretty good last week.
Second week in a row for Georgia to face a team that's got a new offensive coordinator. Last week, Arkansas, whole new staff. This week, new offensive coordinator is Arkansas's former head coach. So he's bringing some ideas to Auburn, maybe some more passing type ideas, and I don't know if they have that workhorse running back that we're kind of used to seeing from Auburn. Only one game to show that from this season, so it's kind of hard to tell. But Auburn has terrific receivers, Seth Williams, Anthony Schwartz, who can run out of his shoes, and Eli Stove and many others. How does Georgia defend that receiving core in this offense from Chad Morris?
Well, I just think that they really just have to stick and believe in who they are. I think they're going to get challenged from so many different ways, but this week, certainly those receivers, Williams and Schwartz, they are as good as we're going to face. And, till you get to an Alabama, you probably won't see two receivers as dangerous as those two guys. Much like LSU, when you have players like that last year, they pose a problem. But I think Georgia has to believe and trust who they are. Again, their defense is smart. They work well together. They're used to the different guys coming in there. And we need to just make sure we take that attack to them. I think that's what this defense is built about. And if you want to get to those receivers, get to the guy that's trying to get the ball to those guys first, and that's Bo Nix. And when he's out there and he has a lot of time, it doesn't matter who you're playing. They're going to hurt you. So Georgia's just got to be true to itself on defense this week, in my belief, and do what you've done up till this point from last year up till last week. They are a good defense.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And last week, we saw a number of pressure looks last week. I mean, we started the football game defensively and brought pressure, 75, 80% of the time in the initial stanza there, first quarter, and, kind of settled into where we weren't bringing quite as much pressure throughout the game with exotic kind of looks. I don't think we'll see quite that much this week because of the talented receiving core that Auburn has. You know, you go back in years past, Georgia has a lot of too high safeties, being very sound fundamentally up front, and not that you're not going to go bring some pressure, but you're going to play a two deep shell behind it. Just to keep the football in front of you and make opposing offenses drive the football field. I think you'll see more of that MO from Georgia because we've seen it historically, especially when you look at the team that we're playing. Kirby does a great job of matching up and building schemes to take away top threats from opposing teams. And I think that we'll see that. And Kevin's absolutely right. You want to be disruptive on offense, you go put the quarterback on the ground and you make him move his feet. And all of a sudden, I don't care how much speed you have on the outside, when you can create that disruption and that confusion and you get quarterbacks on the run where their eye level goes from looking down the field to watching that pass rush, even for a split second, you can really minimize some of the threats that any offense poses against you. And so I think we'll see a little different scheme from Georgia this week than what we saw last week against Arkansas. Probably a little more too high safety, a little more zone concept than just pinning our ears back and coming. But one thing is for certain is that we're going to want to get after Bo Nix and make him move his feet and see if we can fluster him as much as we can.
Georgia and Auburn Saturday night at 7:30 at Sanford Stadium. And guys, final thing here. Are there any intangibles that you're looking for that could sway the outcome of this ball game? Is there anything that's, that we haven't talked about at this point that you think in your mind that could determine the outcome Saturday night?
Well, how can you keep a War Eagle out of a stadium? If they were to somehow get that bird in our stadium, I think that could flip the whole deal. So, I think it's mistakes. I think it's, in this game, we see it in the SEC all the time. These games are close. They're always going to be close. And this early in the year, coming out of the 2020, as Eric was talking about, just not preparing like you always have. It's different. So the team really that makes the least amount of mistakes this weekend, I think, has a clear advantage. And it comes right down to it. I think if Georgia throws up another 8 or 9 penalties in the first half, we'll be behind in the first half. And that's just no way to get off on the right foot for a home game.
I agree with that. For me, it is turnovers and penalties. It is, you look, even in the first half of last week where we had so many opportunities and, a lot's been made about the quarterback play, Dwan Mathis, and is he ready or is he not ready? So much of that, if we don't have just the onslaught of penalties, and now that offense gets a little bit of momentum, it could have been a completely different dynamic within that football game. We have to eliminate the penalties. We have to play fundamentally sound, and then on top of that, eliminate turnovers. We do those things. That's what I'll be watching for, from the first snap, because as Kevin just mentioned, you have 8 or 9 penalties against this football team that we're going to play. It's not going to be 7-5. We're going to be looking at a pretty hefty deficit there. So we've got to be much sharper than we were. We cleaned a lot of it up in the second half. That needs to carry over. And if we do play fundamentally sound, playing at home, you like our chances just because of, again, how good this defense is. Get a carryover on the special team side of it, but you can't win with mistakes.
Well, I want to point out before we go here that Kevin used the words flip and bird at the beginning of his last statements, which really goes to the heart of this rivalry, right? Auburn and Georgia.
You know how much I love Auburn.
There'll be a lot of bird flipping, I would imagine, this week between Auburn and Georgia. We hope you can join us for our radio coverage. It starts at 3:30 Saturday afternoon, tailgate show at 4:30. Kevin and Jeff will have the Dog Talk pregame starting at 3:30, and then the game at 7:30, and then afterward, hours into the night, we'll be talking Georgia football. So we hope you're with us on the radio broadcast, and I think it's ESPN that has the TV coverage. Guys, good to see you again, and we'll talk to you next week. And go Dogs.
Go Dogs. Thanks a lot, Scott. See you, Kevin.